The object of Memoir 44 is to win a certain number of victory medals. And you would place them here for allies, over there for Axis. For Omaha Beach specifically, it's 6 medals. Some of them are fewer, some of them are more, to make a longer or a shorter game. When you get a medal, it is you eliminate all units of a squad. These 4 units are a squad, these 3 are a squad, those 2 artillery are a squad. So the moment you've killed all 3 of these tanks, you would take one of them, like if the Axis killed all 3 of these tanks, he would take the last one and put it over there as a medal. Now, sometimes there are temporary medals which count for winning as long as you're still there, kind of a deal. Specifically, this map does have temporary victory medals only for the Allies. They do not count anything for Axis. For Axis, they literally have to kill 6 squads. For Allies, they have to either kill 6 squads and or combine some of those medals with taking cities. Now you can see here that city, this city, both of those, and that one all have temporary medals. Meaning, if the Allies, let's say, for what these Axis players are, these guys are either dead or they moved out of the city, whatever. And let's say some Ally units went into there. The moment they're there, they have a medal right there. Now, the moment these guys die, or if they're no longer in the city, they do not have that medal anymore. So you kind of want to get those medals when you're about to win anyway. Although cities are nice and easy to defend. So this is my explanation of Memoir 44. So first, to set it up, I did the Omaha Beach scenario because I thought that was a good one. It has a lot of rules in it. First off, over here in the scenario, you choose one of them, and for each infantry picture there is, you have 4 men in it. For every tank, 3 tanks. For every artillery, 2 artillery. There were hedgehogs, wires, hills, bunkers on some of these hills, cities, temporary medals, specifically for the Allies. If you flip it the other direction, it's for the Axis. This is the Allied side. The Allies draw 4 command cards. Axis get 5, and the Axis go first. Now, always have your terrain cards available, so that you can just say, hills, what's so special about hills? Oh, that's what it is. Oh, here's villages, beaches, ocean. You didn't need forest or hedgehogs because there's none of that, or hedgerows because there's none of that in there. Stuff about sandbags and wires. And this is probably the most important card. I kind of wish there were 2 of them. But it shows you each unit, how they can move and how far away they can shoot. So, Axis would go first. They pick a card and then do something. Let's go ahead and switch over to the Axis. So here we are. If I'm playing Axis, here are my cards. Let's just go ahead and take a look at some of them. First, let's go ahead and look at a fairly complicated one, sort of. Armor Assault. Issue an order to 4 armor units. Units in we won't worry about the units in close assault. Well, sure. Units in close assault roll 1 additional die. Close assault means you are right next to another enemy unit. So if you have a tank that's right next to an enemy unit, you would get 1 more die than normal. Terrain movement and battle restrictions still apply. That makes sense. Basically, it just means this does not let you move through hills or forests quicker or anything. And if you do not command any armor units, which, by the way, there are no armor units for the Axis. Armor units are specifically tanks. Artillery are not considered armor units. If you do not command any armor units, issue an order to 1 unit of your choice. So if you wanted to, you would use this card, issue an order, and then draw a card. Your turn would be over. But that's not a very good card to use right now. So let's look at some other ones, and I'll explain how to do all that later. Probe, issue an order to 2 units on the right flank, and it even has a picture and shows the 2. So as you can see, the board is marked into three sections. There's the left flank, center, and right flank. So probe would be 2 units in this area. So you would say, okay, well actually I only have 2 units, so I'm going to issue an order to these 2. Oh, so here's how the turn order goes. It is order your units, move them, attack. And that's, if you wanted to do all that. So I would say, okay, I'm ordering these 2. You always want to just point at them so that everyone knows those are the guys you're putting the orders to. Then you move them all at once. So if you wanted to, I could move this guy, but artillery can only move once and not battle, or don't move at all, but they can still battle. So artillery, generally, you want to just keep them where they are, especially because they're in a bunker, which we'll talk about later. These men are on a hill. That's a pretty good defense bonus too. So now infantry, I can have the choice of moving them 1 time and then still battle, moving them twice but don't battle at all, or of course I could just not move them at all. So for now I'm going to say I'm ordering these 2. I'm not going to move them because they're in really good positions, and I'm going to move on to the attack phase. So here is the battle phase. You always roll the dice, and the number of dice you use kind of depends on the unit that you're using. And by the way, it does not matter how many units are left. If I have 1 man here, or if I have all 4, they will battle exactly the same, no matter what. That's pretty important not to forget. So, if these guys are attacking, here's how it goes. It's number of dice. The number of dice they attack is 3 if it's 1 hex away, 2 if it's 2 hexes away, 1 if it's 3 hexes away. So if they're really up close, they do really well. Further away, not so well. It's hard to shoot guys from that far away. So the best way of doing it, to think about it, is 3, 2, 1. Also, every unit except for artillery must have line of sight. Line of sight means from the middle of the hex to the middle of their hex, there is nothing in the way. Now, wires don't block, hedgehogs don't block, hills block, and it'll say it in the terrain stuff. It'll say blocks line of sight. That means if you had a unit right here, he would not be able to see anybody past this hill because the hill blocks it. However, if you're up on the hill, you can see the other hills just fine. Just think of all hills being exactly as tall. So for this guy, it'd be 3, 2, 1, or you can attack this guy 1, or 3, 2. Oh, can't attack this guy, he's too far away. Can't attack these guys because they're too far away and not enough dice, or block line of sight. Oh, units also block line of sight. Your own units block it, their units block it. So yeah, just basically you cannot shoot past any units, whether they're your own or someone else's, except for artillery. Artillery shoot up into the air and down, so just don't. With them, they ignore that whole, oh, there's a forest there. Too bad. They can still attack right over it. So, infantry. 3, 2, 1. I'm attacking that guy. I'm going to roll 1 dice because I can only roll 1. And I got a man, which is awesome. I got a man, meaning they lose 1 guy. Had I rolled 2 men, they would have lost 2 men. The dice go like this. Man loses a man. Star is a miss. Grenade is hit no matter what it is. Flag is retreat, which I'll talk about in a second. And that would kill a tank. Now specifically, if you aimed at tanks and you rolled a bunch of men, they're all basically misses. You roll at the men, you get tanks, you missed. It's literally, you have to roll what you're trying to kill. Unless you get a grenade, which kills anything. That 1 star earlier is a complete miss no matter what. Flag, retreat. Now let's say I would have rolled a retreat. Or let me give you 2 situations. Let's say I rolled against him, even though I couldn't have. But let's just say I rolled against him and got a retreat. That means these guys would have to retreat 1 backwards. Backwards is towards your line. So these tanks could retreat here or here. However, yeah, let me just go after that first. So normally they would go back 1 or 2. If you had rolled 2 retreats, they would have had to retreat 2 squares. This is not the best example, but now with ocean, which it says over here, it says units may not retreat into the ocean. That means if I roll the retreat on these guys, now first of all they can't go here. Oh, because you cannot move through any units. I never said that, but you cannot move through any units at all. Now this stuff is all different, but units, no. So these guys retreating can't go here because there's men there. However, it's like, oh, they can move there. Ocean has a special rule though. You cannot retreat into the ocean. So instead of retreating once, they would actually lose a guy that way. Now, let's look over at the axis real quick. The exact same rule would apply with these guys. Now, there's no ocean here, but if these guys had a retreat, they can't retreat. Thus, they would lose a man. If you had rolled 2 retreats, they would have lost 2 men. Here, let me give you here's another great example. Let's say you're the Allies and you attack these guys in the city and you get 2 retreats. They would retreat once and then lose a guy for the other one. So it's 2 retreats, 1, 2. It's easier if you just count it out in your head or count it out loud, then it makes sense.